There's three aspects of forgiveness that I'm going to talk about today. One is the world's concept of forgiveness. The second is forgiveness as a daily practice. And the third is forgiveness as an experience. So let's talk about the worldly one first. We're all familiar with this, I'm sure. And the world's take on forgiveness is something like this. You, the other person, you do something, you say something that I judge. And I judge it negatively or I judge it as wrong. Now you're guilty. I feel so much better. And in that guilt, I become the higher person, the better person in forgiving you for what you did that was wrong. This is a standard interaction, standard practice throughout the world. It's accepted, it's seen as loving. The Course really kind of demeans or diminishes this whole practice and tells us that forgiveness, according to the Course, is actually the exact opposite of the scenario I just described, where I condemn you and then I take the high road and I forgive you for what I condemned you for. One other aspect to this worldly view of forgiveness is that the guilt remains, and the Course is very, very consistent in telling us that once the judgment is made, no matter what we do, no matter what we say, no matter what we think, the guilt remains, and there's nowhere for it to go. So it's a very messy scenario that's covered up with a nice layer of whipped cream so that it feels good. So that's the world's take, my version of the world's take on forgiveness. Let's talk about the Course's view on forgiveness. And I said there was two aspects to that. The one aspect is forgiveness as a daily practice, and the other aspect is forgiveness as an experience. Let's talk about the daily practice. The Course tells us that forgiveness as a daily practice, or forgiveness itself, is defined essentially as looking at the ego without judgment. Now, that exact definition may not be word for word in the Course, and I don't get hung up on word for words. It's more about the message, it's more about the teaching. Looking at the ego without judgment. Well, this is something I can do on a regular basis. The Course spends a great deal of time giving us guidelines, tools, techniques, tips. The entire workbook is built around this concept of looking at the ego without judgment. And it's very, very important and significant to remember that it's looking at the ego in me. It's looking at my allegiance to the ego thought system and how that affects my day-to-day interactions, and watching myself without judgment behave according to that thought system. So for me, that's practicing forgiveness. The third aspect of forgiveness is the experience, an experience of forgiveness. Now, this is the side of forgiveness that the Course talks about when it speaks to seeing your brother as the same, seeing everyone as the same, with the same goals, the same objectives, with the same interests. It's an experience, the Course tells us, where things like attack, defense, judgment, condemnation not only don't exist, they don't even come into our frame of reference. So for me, the experience of forgiveness is an end result. I don't have to do anything to experience forgiveness. In fact, if I set out today to try to see a brother as the same, while it's a good practice, my chances of having that experience while I'm trapped in and aligned with the ego thought system are going to be very, very limited. It's much more effective for me to use the tools that the Course gives, and that is to look at the ego without judgment. And in the looking, I break down the foundation of whatever it is I was believing in. And once those obstacles are removed simply by looking at them, all that's left is an experience, and that is an experience of forgiveness. So to summarize, there's worldly forgiveness, which on the surface promises us love, compassion, and happy feelings, but when we look closely, actually brings guilt and suffering. And then there's forgiveness as a daily practice, which is simply looking at the ego without judgment. And then there's the forgiveness as an experience, as an end result of removing the obstacles that block me from experiencing the peace of God. If you like what you just watched, subscribe to this channel and visit my website at jamespatrickmcdonald.com for more subscription-related content.